All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is the April 21st meeting of the Design and Project Review Committee. We do have a quorum, and we'll call the meeting to order. Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow participation electronically by telephone or by video device.
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Neiden,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Callahan. Callahan, you're on mute.
Aye.
Hank.
Aye.
I don't see Mario. Okay. Jones
Aye.
and Sterling.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 14th?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of April 14th.
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Neiden,
Aye.
Biggs,
Abstain.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Hank,
Aye.
Jones,
Abstain.
and Sterling.
Abstain.
Great. New business, 1601 Payne Street, Soul and Smokes, submit for an outdoor cafe for use of the parkway for seating in the MXE Mixed Use Employment District. I think I saw someone on for Soul and Smoke.
Yeah, hi.
Heather, do you want to? So we'll put the screen up and you can talk through what you're proposing to do. Hold on one second. We'll do a share screen. And while Michael's pulling that up, I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and the video will be available on the city's website.
Johanna, can you give me permission?
So Heather, go ahead, and when we pull it up, you can walk through what you're proposing to do.
We were hoping to put out 4 tables out front just for seating. We wouldn't be like doing waiter service or anything, but just so people could grab food, enjoy it outside. That's about it.
All right, are there any questions?
What kind of tables are you planning on putting out? Are these like picnic tables or just tables with chairs, legs?
We were looking at picnic tables.
Just want to make sure we're restoring any of the parkway that gets damaged from these tables after you're done.
Sure. Yeah, we have a landscape company that takes care of the parkway. I can make sure that they'll restore it.
One concern that frequently comes up with outdoor seating is trash management
Of course.
and litter. Do you have any provisions in place to try to control litter?
Yeah, we'll have garbage cans outside and we'll have people checking it every hour as well.
Any other staff questions? So are all these tables in front of your store space, the space you guys control?
They are, yes.
And have you by chance chatted with your neighbors about your proposals?
The building is ours, and our neighbors are leaving July 1st. And they're aware that we're doing this. Sorry.
And anybody else across the street or any other neighbors just generally aware of that this is going to happen, since this will be a little different than what's normally there?
Sure. Yeah, I haven't talked to our neighbors directly across the street. It's a church. They haven't been there this year at all. And then next door to us, they're frequent customers. They're the American Vintage Homes is kitty corner from us.
So I would just encourage you to make sure you talk to everybody who might on the block face and that might be affected in terms of seeing something different. Even if the church isn't there, if there's a number you can call or something, just to give people a heads up that it's happening.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
This is Edgar. I do have one other question. Just when will this be going till? I don't know if I know cafes, we technically allowed to go all year last year since this is in the Parkway, or are we having a specific date?
I don't have one, but I'm open to a date.
So I would say we run these I'm looking for feedback from others here, that we put the date of November 1st,
Okay.
similar to the on-street dining, the non-sidewalk dining. We stayed consistent. We've said that's the November 1st date, given that you have snow storage issues. What do you all think about that?
I agree.
It's reasonable.
Perfect.
All right, so the minutes will reflect that the space will be operational until November 1st. I don't know if that falls on a weekend, so if it falls on a Saturday, you can have till that Monday.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? If not, if somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval of the outdoor dining cafe.
Second.
I will second. All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Nyden,
Aye.
Biggs,
Aye.
Cano, Edgar, sorry, I missed you before.
I noticed that. Aye.
Eckersberg, Ingrid?
Aye.
Vanetta,
Aye.
Hike,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Sterling.
Aye.
Mike, Mario, Tristan here.
Oh, Mario.
Sorry, I was running late, having trouble with the computer.
That's all right. All right, gotcha. Thanks.
You're ready to go. Just talk to Gary, check in with Gary. He's not at the meeting today, but it looks like you provided all your information, but maybe just double check with him. He will know that you've been approved.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Next up for concept review, 2044 Wesley Avenue. John Cleary, applicant, submits for concept review of a proposed zoning map and rezoning certain property from the R5 General Residential District to the R4 General Residential District, and for a plan development with 33 residential dwelling units consisting of 21 townhomes and a 12-unit multifamily dwelling, 54 parking spaces in total, and a new private street connecting Jackson Avenue with Wesley Avenue. Portions of the parcel are currently located in the R4 General Residential District, R5 General Residential District, and West Evanston Overlay District. All right, Mr. Cleary, you're on. Why don't you walk us through, some folks on here are familiar with what you want to do and some are not. So if you want to walk through what you're proposing, that would be great.
Sure. Hi, how are you? I'm a resident of Evanston. I've lived in Evanston for about 6 or 7 years. I've lived on Wesley Street on the 1800 block. I've lived on the, now live on the 2200 block. So I'm coming at this as a resident as well as a developer and property owner. We've talked to several of the neighbors in the area, and you know, some of their concerns were in relation to height, density, and things like this. But this property has been sitting idle and vacant. I'm not sure how long, but it was a railroad easement before this, so there was a railroad on it. And I know going back to the turn of the century, it has been used as a railroad, and I don't think anything else has ever been built on it except for the one existing, there's one existing single family home on this property that we have under contract to purchase. We own the vast majority of this property. We own 1.25 acres. We did extensive research of the overlay of West Evanston and went into all the concepts and went into all the ideas behind it. And we feel that what we've submitted and what we're looking to do, you know, being at townhouses, are exactly what the overlay of West Evanston was looking for and what they would like to see in the area. This site is contaminated. We've done phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies. We have a company of engineers that we have engaged to work with us to clean this site up. We also have a railroad abutment that is significantly large. It's probably about 20 feet tall and runs probably 40 or 50 feet in length. We're going to remove that as well. And again, beautify the area and landscape it a little bit more, make it more desirable than it currently is. I would say I'd leave it over to you to answer your question. If you go on to the last page for me of what our public improvements are, I think if we could do that, Joanna, that'd be great.
Actually, it's Michael Griffith toggling.
Oh, it's Michael toggling, sorry.
He's the pro.
So we're doing 33 units, and we've decided to put, you know, we believe in affordable housing and affordable housing ordinance, and we believe that the best thing to do is to put them on site. So we've tried to devise a way. The current affordable IHO ordinance, it's very, very difficult to do this when you're building condominiums, and we've figured out a way to do this and put 3 affordable units on site. If you go down to the last page there, Michael, if you don't mind, just the public benefits, I'll just run through those real quickly.
He just passed it.
Sorry.
He's going too far.
Okay, you'll have to tell me which sheet you're talking about here.
In the 4-page presentation, the next page after this of the guiding principles, I think it's one just directly below the guiding principles, Michael.
Oh, okay, sorry. I missed
benefits. Here you go.
There we go.
So this is just a list of the public benefits that, you know, we've taken it. We're taking a site that is undeveloped. Nothing has been done with this site for, I'm going to say, since, you know, since the railroad was on it 50, 60 years ago. So we're removing the railroad abutment on Green Bay Road. It's going to cost us approximately $150,000 to do that. We're cleaning up this contaminated this brownfield site. Our environmental engineers estimate it's going to cost somewhere between $400,000 and $450,000 to do that. We're also going to extend Jackson Street. It's what the overlay of West Evanston calls for, is to extend Jackson Street all the way to Simpson. We're not actually going to extend it all the way to Simpson. We're going to extend it to the end of our property line. And then if at a later stage the city wants to take it towards Simpson, the street will be there to continue on, and we'll make it easy for them to continue on up to Simpson Street if that's what the city would like to do. We don't own the piece of property that takes it further than our lot line. So it would be very difficult for us to do that. We're also going to create 3 new affordable houses on site. Over 10 years, we estimate that there will be approximately $2.6 million in real estate tax revenue created. And with this project, there will be about 160 jobs created in the construction of this project if you're using some of the metrics that are used for job creation with dollars spent. We'll also be creating 21 moderately priced houses. We believe that these will be somewhere in the region of 550 to 575,000. What will also happen with this is most of the people who use these townhouses will be actually moving up from condominiums, and they'll be trading up in properties. And what it'll actually do is it will relieve lower priced units, which are more entry level units, into the market for other families and other people as well. So it'll actually create the availability of lower priced housing because of people trading up. Another big thing that the overlay of West Evanston wanted to do was they wanted to connect Green Bay Road, Wesley Avenue, and Jackson together. And we've sort of created that with an open pathway and again a private road connecting all those. Another additional benefit we'll have is because we're extending Jackson Street, we will create over seven spaces, because I've only counted one side of the street, and the second side of the street would be also available. Brand new parking spaces, which would be open to the public. And again, you know, we've just tried to adhere to the overlay of West Evanston and what the guiding principles of that we're looking for. So Michael, I think I'll leave it open for questions, and Jack Stoneberg, our architect, is also on this Zoom call as well, so we can answer any questions that you would care for.
Hi, Michael.
Well, why don't we start with Public Works? Public Works, any comments or questions?
So where would the lines of like the roads, Jackson Avenue, what is private and what would be the city's right of way and the city's property through there?
Chris, my understanding is that we would hand it all over to the city of Evanston, all of Jackson Avenue. Like, we would not own any of it, except, you know, where it turns on to past the sidewalk into the private development. But essentially, we would be, my vision would be to turn the entire street over to the city of Evanston, and you know, they would be then responsible for maintaining it. I would build it, they would maintain it, and we would maintain the private road that links Wesley and Jackson Avenue.
Okay, so we just need to make sure that would be built to all the city standards for how the street would be. As far as your private drive goes, I think I saw it 16 feet wide. You know, it seems like it's a little narrow. I guess I would have some concerns about what your thoughts are. You know, if people are parking on the side of there, like, will there be any parking where guests going to visitors going to park, or if you have maintenance or a garbage truck going down through there, is it one way? I guess I have some questions about the traffic flow and how that's all going to work with being how narrow it is.
Sure. Initially, this was two ways, and it was wider. And given some of the concerns that Michael had raised, we adjusted the plan to make it one way. The aprons that are created by the larger street at the back of the townhouses as well would allow for some parking behind those, although we initially had other parking spaces available for visitors, which we removed as well, again, because of sightline concerns. And our civil engineer, Avi from Bernie Bono's office, he's created this plan for the width of the private driveway to allow for a fire truck to go through. we can take a look and make it, what is required. We're open to discussions, but we have engaged Avi to create a street plan and a civil engineering plan that would meet the city codes and would meet the requirements. Chris. Jack, do you have anything to add?
Not on the street, no. Not specifically on the street. I mean, I could, comment on the overall plan concept if anyone was interested to hear that or not.
Before we move on, this is Laura. I'm just going to comment on supporting what Chris is saying, is that even our alleys, which are usually two-way, we tend to make at least 20 feet wide. And I'm really concerned just in the amount of visitor parking there is. I can see a person wanting to host a kid's birthday party at their house or where they're not really drawing a lot of people, but there is nowhere for these people to park. And it would push them onto further down onto Jackson and Wesley as they exist today, which I don't think have an excess of public parking either. So you really ought to consider widening that backspace up again a little, so that even if you keep it one way, so that maybe you can provide some temporary no overnight parking type of thing for people who have visitors or something, because with the removal of public parking, I just think that you're going to have a big issue with that, managing that in the future.
This is Mario Tristan with the Evanston Fire Department. By fire code, wind court would have to be minimum of 20 feet wide for a fire lane.
Okay, we will note that and we will pass it on to our engineers. Initially, this private driveway was 24 feet wide, and we abbreviated it. We narrowed it due to sightline concerns, reversing out of the garages in the rear of the townhouses.
I think that this might be something that is worth having a follow-on conversation with your civil separately from this, to maybe just talk through some of these issues about parking, sanitation, fire lanes, etc., and kind of hashing it out rather than having to go back and forth type of conversation.
I think some of the other considerations with the road would be, sidewalks. How are people getting down it? And lighting. I don't know how it's going to be lit at all. If you had any comments on any of those or thoughts on those two items.
We have a full lighting plan for the site, which would include lighting along the sidewalk and along the private driveway. So we do have a full lighting plan. We have a mechanical and electrical engineer who has provided a full, I think it's called a photometric plan, is it, for light going off site. So we have that created. It's just we haven't submitted it just quite yet. But duly noted, and it's definitely something we were working on, as well as a landscaping plan, which we're working on too.
While we're on the topic of the sidewalks, I would say where Wesley meets on the east side of the property, the sidewalk doesn't quite line up, or there's an extended part of the sidewalk. And I would just say for ADA compliance, make sure that those sidewalks line up in a straight path and that the sidewalk takes precedent over where that alley empties into the street.
Okay.
So will there be a walkway in the rear?
In the rear of the property?
Yes.
On the private road, my understanding is no. Right now, there is not. There is a walkway in the front of the property to access each of the townhouses at the front of the property.
So any pedestrians there would have to walk on the road, or is there landscaping? I'm sorry, I can't see the plans fully from here. And basically, would people be pushed onto the road, just, kids, anybody walking back there? Again, I know there's no walkway designated, but, will they just be pushed on into the road?
There's a walkway on the front of the property, all the way connecting Green Bay Road all the way to Jackson.
So you plan on not having anyone walk in the back, basically?
It would be similar to an alley where it's a private road, or a private alley where, access to the parking spaces in the rear of the buildings. Similar to other townhouse developments, or similar to other, the width of it would allow for, the width of the setback behind each of the townhouses would allow for a pathway if we needed to connect those all together and keep it separate from the road. The question would be, we could accommodate one. We could probably accommodate a 3 or 4 foot wide pathway connecting the sidewalk on Jackson all the way through to the sidewalk on Green Bay Road. If you see where in between the building 5 and building 6, we probably could accommodate some form of walking.
We can, I say we talk to Abby and the civil engineers about it, John.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a conflict of having, encouraging pedestrians to walk. I'm thinking of having a designated sidewalk, running coincident with an alley. So I don't know if it's better to encourage pedestrian traffic on the Wesley Vehicular Court, or if it's better to emphasize the pedestrian path in the front. I would think it'd be safer to emphasize it on the front. But maybe it's a civil engineering, maybe, Abby would have some perspective on it.
Sure.
I think I tend to agree with you, John. I really see the roadway working more as an alley. I don't know why you would need a sidewalk back there. Particularly if that public storage building someday redevelops in the future, this would probably act as an alley for them too. I don't see that anything they did would front this street. It would front Simpson. I think the way it's designed is appropriate.
I agree. And city code does not encourage, well, it discourages people from walking and biking in alleys.
And as far as widening, when you widen it, if you plan to widen it to 24 feet, I would just encourage you to keep in mind the snow storage if you are going to be clearing that. If you say you're already limited in space of where you would put that, knowing that you cannot push it out into the city streets.
Yes, I'll make a note of that.
And then one thing with Jackson, I know you're saying you're going to be hopefully extend Jackson over to Simpson. Excuse me. Do you plan? What does that entail? Does that also include the sidewalks on both sides of the street as well, and the any signs or street lights?
Just to be clear, we're not extending Jackson all the way to Simpson. We're extending Jackson to the edge of our property. We do not own the property highlighted in green on the left-hand side for future extension northbound. We do not own that property. We have an easement over part of the property to the left. So we would extend it there, and we are also extending the sidewalk along the east side of Jackson. As for lighting and things like that, I'd have to check with the civil engineer on lighting for Jackson. Just making a note of that now.
Thank you.
Also, just the design of how your court comes into Jackson. If a resident turns down Jackson thinking it's, just the street, I could see them, especially, I don't know if the one-way flow comes from Wesley or however that gets worked out, they're going to want to be able to turn around, or what do you do when public traffic starts coming down there, realizing it's a dead end and now they're stuck, heading towards your alley. You could do that in a way that they could do a 3-point turn like they would do in a regular alley, rather than just kind of the rounded drive.
Duly noted. I'll pass it on to the engineer. Right now it's a cul-de-sac. Jackson is, so.
With the Jackson extension, including the sidewalk extension, I encourage that as a public benefit that the west side sidewalk be included as part of the extension as well, especially since where the new alley will empty into Jackson will create a sightline issue. And if you have people crossing at the end of Jackson on the west side, there's going to be conflicts with vehicles.
Could I just make this point, Jessica? Sorry. The property on that side is not our property. We do not own that property. We do not. And it's also.
That's why I said I suggested it as a public benefit.
Sure.
I'm sorry, did you say which way the alley would flow as a one-way? Is it east to west?
It flows from Wesley through to Jackson.
Because one thing I am not an engineer, but I could see if someday Jackson is connected here, people traveling from west on Simpson would cut down Jackson to get to their home and go down the alley the wrong way instead of going, kind of around down Jackson up Wesley. I think it could create a traffic pattern that somebody who wants to get the quickest way to get home would not follow.
So so you're saying going south on Jackson from Simpson, they would turn into Wesley Court and go down to Wesley. Is that what you're saying?
I could see that. I mean, I think as soon as you connect Jackson, it's going to turn Wesley Court into a street in a way that isn't necessarily going to be the way it is on these plans. So I think, and I guess I would direct this more to the civil engineers and Jessica as well. I think we need to think what this would look like in the long term, not just the short term of buildings being built, because I mean, most of us when we would travel to the Civic Center or the Service Center area, if we're coming from the west or northwest, we're going to travel Simpson across Green Bay. And if we had to get to this area, I don't think we necessarily travel to Green Bay and around. The shortest path is as the crow flies. And once Jackson's a street, you're going to have that problem. And I can only imagine online directions would also send you in this circuitous way. And it could create, I think, some extra challenge for traffic in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
John, you should maybe make note that, originally the Wesley Court was 24 feet wide and it was two-way. It was conceived of as a two-way vehicular artery, court roadway. And it was narrowed to increase the garage aprons and also accommodate the fire truck. And so, maybe there's some benefit to re-looking at it going back to 24 feet and perhaps being able to accommodate two-way traffic if Jackson Boulevard did actually extend all the way up to Simpson at some point in time.
It's a tight area with that new Wesley Court at 24 feet wide. It bumps up against those garages, so there's absolutely no there's no separation between the garage and the street, which again is typical in alleys, but if you have a 24-foot wide street, we're talking something a little bit different than how an alley functions. So I think a narrower street actually is a better idea. I don't think this is going to have a lot of traffic, and I think, like Kate said, I think it functions more of an alley in this configuration. But I do think in terms of the direction of flow, the traffic flow, you still need to consider how those garages align and whether or not it's best to go from east to west or west to east based on how vehicles are going to be able to back out and then pull back into their garages, particularly building 4 and 5. So yeah, I think a narrower street or alley, whatever we want to call it, I think functions better for its intended use.
All right, any other public, I think we're getting some good comments back from Public Works. Any other Public Works or civil comments?
I just mentioned that, sorry, we'd expect you to manage, I'm assuming you would, all the stormwater on the site, but that would include the Wesley Court as well. Anything on that drive, you'd still manage that.
Yes,
We're development as well.
Yeah, we'll have a full set of engineering plans, and it will have stormwater detention for the entire site.
Are these all slab on grade?
Yes. There's no basements.
Hi, this is Mike Rivera. I have a couple questions. With regards to the parking, the total parking count of 54 spaces, is that inclusive of the 7 on Jackson, or is that going to be all on your property, the 54 spaces?
That includes the 7 on Jackson. So there's 47 total on-site parking spaces.
Okay. And then are you going to have any disabled parking at all on the site? And then lastly, I believe we have some residential parking district in that neighborhood. I believe it's District 14. And the residents of this complex would not be eligible to purchase parking permits for that residential parking district.
In building 7, which is a multi-unit building, which is kind of currently under design development, there's one accessible parking space that's being provided.
So one of my questions regarding the green infrastructure is how does this design actually promote maintaining the green character? I mean, you got a couple small areas for like a little private park, but I didn't see any landscaping on this as far as any type of tree density or even landscaping that, it's a tight area to do anything that's going to be really positive green infrastructure wise.
And Michael, I tend to agree with you as well, but we have this plan out at the moment to a landscape architecture who is designing a landscape plan for this property. Right now, this is a brownfield site. It's contaminated. There's a railroad beam there. There's trees growing on top of the railroad beam, 40 feet in the air. It's worth walking and taking a look. This site also is 3 to 4 feet tall in elevation, above grade. So what's there right now, we definitely can improve on it considerably. But there's a significant cost in cleaning up this site, and there's a significant cost in removing that railroad embankment. And we want to create a nice green architecture in the area, and we have hired Gary from G Studio to design a landscape plan for this. We should have it within a week or two, and we can submit that to you along with a lighting plan as well. Kind of the two are interlinked, and again, the detention required on the site is also very significant as well, so that plays into it as well.
Mm-hmm. If I could just ask you to, there's a huge push in the green movement here for natives and
yes.
Just site appropriate for
yes. Low water native plants. Yes. Exactly. No, we're well aware of what the city is looking for, and we've looked into their things, and these are things, again, in the green ordinance. I actually have the sheet here, the 4 or 5 pages, and we're looking to check as many boxes of those that we possibly can. And the native plants and the low water, low maintenance requirements are definitely, we're looking at those, Michael. We're looking at those.
And a preference for something other than turf grass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
All right, any other public works comments or questions? All right, Mike Rivera, do you have any other parking comments or concerns?
No, that was it. Just that they understand that, like I said, that the residents of that building would be ineligible to purchase parking permits for residential district number 14 or any other district established nearby.
And may I ask, why is that, or is it just, what's the reason behind that?
Because those were already pre-established residential parking districts that were petitioned by the residents of those particular blocks.
And Michael, can I ask you this question? If we're creating 7 to 10 brand new parking spaces along Jackson Street at our own cost, would that have any implications on that decision?
That's something we can discuss offline, and I'll have to take a look at the block with Jackson to see if those become permitted or if they would fall under the established permitted area, or if they would just be free spaces.
Okay, yeah, sure. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, planners, any comments or questions?
I think it's a great concept, John. It's essentially a cluster development, albeit one with a little more parking than is traditional, I think. And I think it generally does follow the West Evanston plan. These are basically type 2 townhomes, which it calls for in this area. I would just say, when you really take a deep dive on the materials, maybe the townhomes on Green Bay have a little bit, maybe there's a little more sensitivity to what kind of materials you select on that public frontage versus the units that are kind of hidden on the interior.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more if you don't mind, Kate?
It's a good and a bad example. I mean, that public storage building is both really interesting and significant, and also just a really brutalized building at the same time. But that front facing facade has a lot of brick. It is pretty intricate, pretty interesting. I would just, whatever you do, just have it be contextual. Then, and at the same time, everything to the south is, it's basically just an amalgam of different materials. So if anything, I would say look at including some kind of masonry, but I think in general, what you're showing as a concept is authentic in architectural expression. And that's basically what we're looking for. It's contemporary and it's authentic, which I would agree with. I think it's a good concept.
Thank you. Jack?
Well, no, that all sounds wonderful. I mean, I think we're looking to, provide exactly what you noted, which is a kind of a clustered, development, instead of having, continuous row homes where there's a lot of middle townhouses, which are only benefiting from natural light and vent at the ends of the building. And by kind of creating this cluster, smaller buildings, a lot of the units, I think maybe 75% of them are benefiting from natural light and ventilation on more than just the primary front facade and the rear facade. So they're getting light from the side and from oblique perspectives, and that allows these to feel more like single family homes, where you get the benefit of light and vent from all 4 sides. So I think also creating these clusters, these smaller buildings, gives the advantage of creating a little bit more specialized identity for each one of the units. And I think we're looking to provide that individual identity with the mix of materials that kind of show up in some of the 3D drawings.
Out of curiosity, what's the setback on Green Bay? I know that's, the way those townhomes embrace the street, that's going to be a real challenge and opportunity for you guys. I mean, it's a busy road.
It's interesting. Yeah, building 5 and 6, there's kind of a zigzag between that setback between where the property line is on Green Bay. If you can kind of see, like, there's not a continuous property line, so there's not a continuous setback. And I think we're looking to emphasize the pedestrian right of way and create a special kind of connection between Green Bay and the development between the buildings, and which is going to be highlighted with landscape and you know, maybe some other features, lighting. But I think if you zoom in, the setback is roughly 15 feet on building 5, and on building 6, it's roughly 10 and a half feet.
I think that's good. I think I was going to say 10. I don't remember what the plan calls for there. I think it's 10 feet. I don't recall specifically, but
So the property lines they're just like kind of imaginary because they zigzag, and the sidewalk is kind of what dictates. So
sure.
the building facades in building 6 are going to appear like 22 feet setback from the sidewalk.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, maybe you could move it a little closer to the, if you can. I mean, it is a challenge, but
move it closer to Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking 22 feet, 20 some feet. I mean, that's like a single family residential setback, which is, you know, it just seems a little weird for something in this location, but.
Well, yeah, I think John would agree that we would much more prefer to have building 6 more aligned with building 5, the facade, so it's more continuous. It's just, you see that zigzag. So maybe we'll explore that.
Yeah.
So there's an anomaly here with Doyle's addition to Evanston, where the north part of the lot the lot line is closer to the street than the south side of the lot line. And it's basically where Doyle's addition to Evanston was added. The light blue line on the outside there is actually where the sidewalk is. And again, that's probably 5 feet out further than the property line. And the existing property owners have fenced that in. So they put the fence along the sidewalk, but technically they don't own that property. That property is the city of Evanston's, but for all intents and purposes, it's kind of this no man's land. Because the railroad abutment is butting out further, you can see it in the light blue color there. It's butting out further, which is on city of Evanston property, but the sidewalk is 2 feet away from that. You know, it's the other side of that railroad abutment, so it's probably 3 feet further out into the sidewalk is 3 feet further out from the lot line of the property today, where it exists today. Do you understand what I'm saying, Kate? So, and again, you see the way our building 5 and building 6, they don't line up. We'd love them to line up, but unfortunately, the way the rules are, we have to set them back 10 feet from a lot line, which is going to end up being 20 feet from the sidewalk.
I see. Well, maybe it's worth just exploring what kind of, if you're going in for some other kind of variation or something, or part of the plan development, that you look at reducing that setback. I don't know if anyone talked about it. I might have missed it, but can you explain the rationale for downzoning from R5 to R4 and why that's beneficial?
It's coming from the zoning department that the whole property, entire property, is all zoned to one zoning, which currently the underlying zoning on the vast majority of the property is R4. There's only one portion of the property, 150 by 100 feet on Jackson, that is zoned R5. And our plan works in R4 and it works in R5. So it's the uniform zoning of the whole entire development is what zoning department's looking for. So it works under 4. So let's just downzone it to 4, you know?
Okay. And then really just my last point, I would kind of echo what Michael Callahan said, where I think these developments are they're most successful where that interior space, that ancillary space, or I guess you could call it open space. It's less turf, it's less usable, it's more native plant material. And I think that that plant palette that really, that's gonna work with your architectural aesthetic too.
I'll make note of that for the landscape architect.
All right, Jessica Heinck, any questions or comments?
No additional questions besides the ones that I made regarding the pedestrian path.
All right, Mario, any other additional fire comments?
Yes, Diana. Fire department does have concerns with building 7. That's one building we do not see emergency access to. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to figure out how the residents are going to be able to park on the east side. There's no, and the current layout doesn't show access. Or are they coming off of Jackson? Or I'm not sure how they're getting to that parking on the east side of the building.
They're driving down the alley.
Okay, where's the alley there? Is that on the very south side of the building?
It's on the east side of the building.
Yeah,
This right there, you
Okay.
go. Whoever's making that line.
right. Okay, the east side, but then how did, I mean, but where do they get to from there to the street, to Jackson? How do they get to Jackson?
They would pull in, John.
So,
Go ahead.
so there's an alley in between Jackson and Wesley Avenue where the cars could come down this alley and they would pull in to their parking spaces. They can access Jackson Street from outside the building by walking around the front of the building. See the public paved alley right now.
Okay. Right now, fire department does not have access to that building, so that will have to be addressed. And again, we need a minimum of 20 foot wide fire lane.
So what we intend to do as part of this development is extend Jackson Street all the way up to the edge of the property line, which would give you 20 feet in front of the building along Jackson Street.
And how far is that building to Jackson Street?
I'd have to measure it.
It's we don't have that exact dimension, but it's approximately 20 feet setback. I don't have that dimension dimensioned up, but it's approximately a setback of 20 feet.
This is for building 7?
Yeah.
Okay. How about to the east side of the building where all the garages are?
From Jackson Avenue?
Yep.
Well, that property, the property line that's south, that runs from roughly from Jackson Avenue to the alley, that dimension is 149 feet.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that because right now we have to be able to get access to the building, where right now I'm not seeing it in this layout.
If Michael could toggle back to the site plan, there's a fire truck that's parked in front of the building on the site plan in front of building 7 on the Jackson Avenue extension.
West of the building?
Yes.
Okay, right. So that truck is parked out there, but if they have to get all the way out to the east side of the building, that's just too far. We got to get that truck closer to that building. So we can have this discussion later, maybe, set up a meeting with fire department.
All right, sounds like there's lots of
Thank you.
offline later on meetings with various staff. Any other staff comments or questions? I don't see any members of the public unless there's somebody in the public. You could indicate, raise your hand, or put a message in chat. Otherwise, we'll put the meeting minutes will get put together and shared at the next meeting of the Design and Project Review Committee. And I don't think we will have a meeting next week due to lack of agenda items. So that will be potentially even further 2 weeks out because several of us will be out the following week. So I guess before we adjourn, John and team, do you have any questions for city staff before we adjourn?
I'm good. Thank you. It's been very, very productive.
Thank you very much.
Great. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.